We don't need a legal expert or a lawyer. We don't need to consult anybody, but the Daily Wire did. This is illegal, just plainly illegal under federal law. But of course, you're going to see this kind of thing happen. And I'd be willing to bet that it's typically only going to be conservatives who call out overt racism in this manner. But let's read it. NYC casting call says white artists will be paid less than POC artists and undergo mandatory session of anti-racism training. Oh, but it gets better because apparently in the casting call, they said if you want to apply, and you're white, you have to explain what you're doing to rectify something like, I don't know, historical or systemic racism. Yep, which is illegal. Let's read. A casting call was recently posted on Backstage, a website for actors and technicians for a small ensemble play in New York City. I will ask this question. What play is this? And is it really that important, right? So I guess the issue might be, is this like a tiny thing of like 5 people, or is this like a big Broadway thing? Well, I don't think he gets into that, so I think it may be small, but I still think it's important to point out the issue. Underneath the rehearsal heading, the call stated that white actors who were cast in the show would participate in mandatory anti-racism training session. That training session would not be mandatory for actors of other races. This part's interesting because they do have like workplace sexual discrimination programs, but I think everyone has to do them. I don't think they can make a specific thing for only one group of people. I could be wrong though, but we'll read because he does talk to lawyers. Now, under the compensation heading, the call stated that actors of color would be paid more than white actors. Totally illegal. The original text under the rehearsal and compensation section read, "Please note we are working on organizing a short 3 to 4 hour anti-racism training for the creative team and ensemble in April to help us address power dynamics and reduce harm within the creative process. This training will be open to all ensemble members and creative team members, but will be mandatory only for white ensemble creatives." This was the part where, man, I sure am glad I'm not completely white, because you look at this stuff. You see, what was the other thing? There was a story. God, you know what? I'm going to skip that because there's a story. I can't remember what it was. But someone did bring up a point that the white privilege idea is really, really funny. If it exists, why would Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke try to be downplaying their whiteness? And I don't think that discredits the idea of what white privilege is supposed to mean, but it does bring up a really interesting point of where we are today. And it seems like, based on the logic you have of Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke, if white privilege is a thing, it was a thing a long time ago, and now people are trying as hard as possible to not be white. And you have stories like this. Like, what if you're a white person, you apply for this, they're going to pay you less? Like, that's kind of screwed up. What if you're a white person from, I don't know, Ukraine, and you just moved here? Yes, I kid you not. I have had people tell me that rich black people in the United States are worse off than poor white Ukrainians. And I'm like, do you you know what? Let's read. Pays a small stipend, minimum $150 for the spring workshop period. Due to the content of this particular project, resources are being allocated in favor of POC collaborators. This means that POC artists will receive a larger stipend than the white artists working on the project. And that's actually here. They have a screenshot of it. Additionally, although the character breakdowns are non-descriptive, the stage manager staff crew section reads as follows. I'm just going to read the image. It says, "If you're interested, please email a resume to blank and tell us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in working on the project. If you're white, we'd also love to hear a little bit about what accountability to people of color within a creative process means to you. Please also note any conflicts with the attached rehearsal schedule." Here's my response to that. I recognize the history of the United States, and I'm pretty sure, I haven't traced my genealogy, but I'm pretty sure all of my grandparents were immigrants, so I wasn't here, yet my grandparents, I believe my grandparents, no. My one grandparent fought in World War II, despite my understanding as being an immigrant, so we're doing everyone in America a favor in that capacity, right? So do I have to be subject to this? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not entirely white, so I can just play the people of color card, I guess. On or around Monday, April 1st, the compensation text suddenly changed. It now simply reads, pays a small stipend, minimum $150 for the spring workshop period. In order to understand why the changes were made, I reached out to the playwright via email. Within a few hours, the playwright got back to me with a question. What do you mean about the compensation part changing? I have to imagine that somebody here realized what they were posting was a violation of federal law and quickly changed it. However, a few minutes later came a second reply. Just checked it. I think Backstage must have taken out the part about paying people of color a higher stipend, but that hasn't changed. Yes, because it's illegal. You are committing a crime. I think it's a crime. It's illegal, but it might be a fine. Troubled by the idea of payment tiers seemingly based on race alone, as well as mandatory anti-racism training for only white actors, I reached out to several legal scholars for clarification. I asked Professor John Donahue of Stanford Law the following questions, having provided him with the information from the casting call. Is it legal to pay people, actors in the cast, differently based on race? Is the mandatory anti-racism training only for white cast members legal? Donahue replied, simply stating, not allowed under federal employment discrimination law, and presumably state anti-discrimination law as well. And yes, New York City has these laws as well. Professor Elizabeth Bartholet of Harvard Law said that although she doesn't know what justification the authors of the casting call present or have for paying different races differently, if the payment tiers are based only on race, it would not be legal. She added that it would be illegal to require one race and not another to go through the anti-racism training if based only on race. That was the interesting thing, because that's not compensatory. That's like, I guess it's not legal then to make only men go through sexual harassment training. That's what I thought. If you're going to try and tell people they can't do something, you got to tell everybody. With this information in hand, I reached out to the playwright on Friday, writing, I've spoken with 2 legal professors, both of whom told me that paying people differently based solely on race is likely not legal. Would you like to comment for the piece? I have yet to receive a reply. However, as of Friday, something else changed. There's no longer any mention of the anti-racism training underneath the rehearsal heading. It now states, rehearses April and May with a work in process showing June. Auditions are allegedly underway. So they got rid of the anti-racism training because it's against the law. And so there's a really interesting phenomenon in the left-right debate where the left tries to claim everyone outside of their authoritarian left spectrum. I don't mean everyone on the left. I mean the regressive, these people, They try to claim, everyone else is far-right or racist. It gets really weird then when you have the identitarian right and the identitarian left believing basically the same things, and then you have social and classical liberals like, me or Dave Rubin or other members of like the intellectual dark web who are liberal, but maligned for daring question overt racism. Like, can I just make a really simple point? When we passed the laws in this country saying you can't discriminate based on race, we meant it. And you can't discriminate based on sex either. So it's really funny that you have a bunch of things that persist to this day that are considered benevolent sexism or benevolent racism. People see this and they think it's not racist because they change the definition. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you think the definition is. There is a legal definition. This is illegal. One thing that's really fascinating about the passage of 1964, I think the 1964 Civil Rights Act did say sex as well, so women couldn't be discriminated against, or men, is that you end up with these ladies' night events at bars across the country. Now, you ask the average dude, and they'll say ladies' night is awesome, because typically you go to the bar and it's just a bunch of dudes, and you want women, so women are incentivized to come with cheaper drinks. However, that's actually illegal, because you're either charging men more or you're charging women less, and that's discrimination based on sex. So now there's actually people who make a living finding, like Google search ladies' night, go to different bars, refuse to pay the higher price, and then file a lawsuit, and they get a settlement immediately, and the bars have to stop doing this. Now, look, I think there's a lot of people who are like, that's so dumb, why can't you have a ladies' night? I'm not gonna tell you what I don't care. Like, I literally don't care if a bar has a ladies' night. But I do recognize, literally against the law, like, you cannot discriminate and charge different sexes different prices. But there's another thing I'm gonna do, just a really quick point to be made about the left on something you've probably seen before, just because I like bringing this up, especially when we're talking about what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was just doing, where she changed the way she spoke. White liberals present themselves as less competent in interactions with African Americans. Right? I've cited this a lot, but it's a really good study. It's a Yale Insights article talking about how when liberals are talking to black people, they pretend to be stupid. It's literally right here. And conservatives do not. But we have this from 1984. So maybe things have changed. You know, it's been quite a lot. What are we looking at? Like 35 years. But half of all racists are left wing. I think that's pretty fair considering anybody can be racist and not everybody is right wing. So you'd probably find that, yeah, half of all racists are left wing. Now, again, it's a really, really old study. But the point remains. For the longest time, since the 80s, as long as I've grown up, I know that people on the left are racist. I know people on the right are racist because racists exist. This is overt. This is what needs to be stopped. Show me, right now you've got like the wedding cake thing in Colorado where it's like the guy doesn't want to make a cake for the gay couple and it was a big thing. But you don't have conservatives trying to do like predominant, like you don't have, it's not a mainstream conservative position to make race-based tiers of payment. That's a left-wing thing happening right now. So this is a really good example of the problem I've been trying to highlight where, look, I get it. The white nationalists, the white supremacists, they exist. I don't like them. They're bad. And their extremists do really bad things. And yes, should they start gaining power legitimately, I will be concerned and I will, make videos. I've worked for a bunch of nonprofits. Most of my friends on the left, this was a concern. But here's the thing. They're gone. They're like nothing. They're just not that active anymore. But you have this mainstream left-wing white supremacy where they believe it's benevolent white supremacy, whatever you call it. I call it empathetic racism. But you know what? I'm going to leave the story. I'll leave it there for now. I think you get the point. Stick around. I got some more videos coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you then.